Ferrari is the most legendary team in Formula 1. They have been there since the beginning and they have got more world championships than any other team in the sport's long history. But ever since 2019, the team has been struggling. They haven't scored a single win and podiums have been few and far between. So what's going on with Ferrari? And will the introduction of the new 2022 rules and the introduction of Carlos Sainz to the team be able to get Ferrari back on their championship winning ways? Let's find out. So in my opinion, the last time that Ferrari had even a slight shot at winning a title was back in 2018. So in that year they had what I think was the most spectacular car for the whole of the season, and it was a very innovative aerodynamic design. But I just think that Ferrari couldn't keep Sebastian Vettel in the same happy place that he found at Red Bull in order to win the championship. And then came the dark years of 2019 and 2020. So in 2019 we had Ferrari coming out of pre-season testing with being the major title favorites, but then in the first race they didn't even finish on the podium. So what happened on that season was that they had a car that was too reliant on the engine, and we'll get back to that engine later, and that produced too little downforce in order to be competitive with even the Mercedes in the first race, or even the Red Bull, because Max Verstappen managed to get on that podium. But then came the engine troubles, and this is all alleged, so nothing is confirmed, but what is confirmed is that Ferrari at the end of 2019 did an engine deal with the FIA in order to stop some alleged cheating that was going on. And then in 2020 things just went south from there, because the team was in a very rough shape. They had a very bad aerodynamic design, so they tried to fix the low downforce approach from 2019 with a very, very high downforce car in 2020. But then due to the engine deals, they had a very low power engine, and that just resulted in a car that was very undrivable, because you actually need a lot of engine power to have a high downforce car, because a necessary byproduct of downforce is drag. So they had a very draggy car that wasn't actually able to take advantage of all of that downforce. And adding even more confusion to the mix, on the eve of the 2020 season, they just announced that Sebastian Vettel would be replaced by Carlos Sainz. So during the 2020 season, Ferrari had a bad car and a driver that knew he was not going to be there in the next year. So it's not necessary to say that it was a total disaster for the team, and they had their worst finishing years, finishing P5 on the Constructors' Championship. And in my opinion, they were even lucky to finish P5, because I think that due to their strong driver lineup, they finished above and beyond a lot of teams that had a more powerful car than them. But then in 2021, and with the addition of Carlos Sainz, we started seeing Ferrari take a step in the right direction. So I know that finishing third in the championship is not where Ferrari needs to be, and it's not a good spot for a team with such high quality facilities and with such an amazing engineering team to be, and with such a high budget. But it's a step on the right direction, coming through to third and finishing ahead of a Mercedes-powered McLaren, which was also a very, very strong car and a very strong driver lineup for McLaren with Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo. But Ferrari came through, and both on the aerodynamic side and on the engine side, Ferrari was able to deliver a car that was much, much nicer to drive than the 2020 car, and they had a very good rear suspension to the car as well, which was the major problem with the 2020 car. So things started coming into the right direction. And then at the end of 2021, Ferrari introduced a major engine upgrade. So it was the first major engine upgrade since that secret settlement with the FIA. And they just introduced a new hybrid powertrain, and it was a big jump over the previous power unit. And it was such a big jump that they left McLaren in the dust, and that was the major factor that decided that they were going to be third and not McLaren, was the jump that they made in the engine, because they actually stopped the car development very early to focus on 2022. Just a quick stop for this video. If you guys are enjoying my analysis of Ferrari's 2022 season and are enjoying the kind of content I'm making on this channel, well, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm almost hitting 1,000 subscribers, and I really want to achieve that before the season starts in March, so it would mean the world to me if you guys could help me reach that goal. So with that said, back to the video. So that big jump that they made on the engine side, as I said, was on the electrical part of the powertrain and was enough to put them on par, in my opinion, with Red Bull and Mercedes, if not just a little bit back. This was the first sign that I saw for the team for 2022. Now, being able to fast track an update that was meant for the 22 car, for the 21 car, and seeing such amazing results is a very good sign for any team. And this is the first of many signs that I think will tell me that Ferrari is going to do well for 2022. And the second piece of that puzzle, in my opinion, is the fact that I think all of the key players are in place for Ferrari to become a world championship force again. So, as I said before, Carlos Sainz is a new addition to the team, and with Mattia Binotto and Charles Leclerc already at the team and doing a great job in their places, I think that the team is just a powerhouse, and I honestly think that they have the best or the second best just behind Mercedes driver lineup on the entire field for 2022, and I think that will be just enough for them to win the 22 title. Now, I know that's not what I said in my previous prediction video, but I have been hearing a few little things from Ferrari that have made me believe in their 22 chances. Now, this is just hype generated by Ferrari, but who knows, they might be onto something. So the first key piece of information that you need to know about is all about the wind tunnel testing time. So as I mentioned before, Ferrari was one of the first teams that stopped development of their 2021 car, and this is not taking into account the engine because the engine doesn't really come into play when it comes to aerodynamic development, and it actually gives them an advantage from a development standpoint for 2022. But as I mentioned before, Ferrari was one of the first teams that stopped development of their 2021 car, and since they finished 2020 in 5th place, they had a lot more wind tunnel development time than both Mercedes and Red Bull, who I think will be their title contenders for 2022, focused a lot of wind tunnel testing time into their 2021 car. So both of them, and Red Bull particularly, were bringing parts to the last few races in order to assure that they won the championship. And it might have been a worthy investment because each championship is a championship, but then looming in the background was Ferrari not developing their 2021 car and putting all of those development resources into 2022. And I think that this was a genius move. And if you look at the sliding scale of aerodynamics that I've made a whole video about right here, so check that out after you watch this one, and with them finishing third, they still have got a lot more wind tunnel testing time than both Red Bull and Mercedes for the 2022 season, so I think that this is going to be a major advantage. But the last sign that's giving me a lot of hopes for Ferrari's 2022 chances is actually a quote from a few journalists that I've got right here. So Sky Sports' Ted Kravitz said, "I'm hearing a lot of positive noises out of Ferrari. The engine's going well, and they say the car is looking much more aggressive than it has in any of the recent Ferraris we have seen over the last 1 or 2 years." And this is backed up by Karun Chandok, who said, "I had a couple of conversations with people just before Christmas, and they were very optimistic because they feel they made big gains on the engine department." And this is also backed up by a quote by Mattia Binotto, who says, "If I look at the 2022 car and the 22 power unit, believe me, there's a lot of innovation in it. I can measure it myself by looking at the car itself, the way it's progressing, and certainly with the amount of innovation we have put in it." Now, I think that this is a very good sign because I don't think that Ferrari engineers and even their team principal would be telling this kind of stuff to journalists if they thought that they had a car just like they had in 2020, because hyping up the car so much before the launch when you know it's going to be a bad one, it's really something that Formula One teams don't tend to do. And I think that the fact that they are telling the journalists that the car is going to be much more aggressive is a sign of things to come, because the last time that Ferrari had an aggressive design was back in 2017 and 18, and both of those cars were title contenders, and in my opinion, at least in 2018, they really should have won that title. So with a good power unit and an aggressive design on the car, I'm really hopeful for Ferrari's chances for 2022. But I'm also kind of worried. Now, all of this just worries me for two reasons. So firstly, is the last time that Ferrari actually made an aggressive design at the car was back in 2019, when they tried to make a car that was super efficient on every single aerodynamic surface, but they ended up with a car that didn't have a lot of downforce. So it was a car that on the corners couldn't really match the Mercedes or the Red Bull, even if in the straights it was unbeatable. But this was the last time that Ferrari had an aggressive shot at a car. And when you say that the car is aggressive, it can really go either one of two ways. It can either be a very, very good car, or it can be a disaster. So I'm really hoping that Ferrari really nailed it this time with their aggressive design. But the second reason I'm worried for is actually their driver lineup. So as I mentioned before, Ferrari has one of the best driver lineups, if not the best driver lineup on the entire field for 2022. But unlike Mercedes, where they have got an established driver and a newcomer, what they have got in their team is two established drivers that are fighting for their first world championship, and in the case of Carlos Sainz, for his first Formula One win. So I just think that both Charles and Carlos are really evenly matched, and we can be looking at a scenario just like Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton back in the Mercedes in 2014, 15 and 16, where they just keep taking points away from each other. But back in those days, Mercedes could afford to do that because they were such above and beyond every single other team. And I just think that Ferrari won't be able to afford this in 2022, because I just think that if Ferrari has the best car in 2022, it won't be by such a big margin that the drivers can be stealing points from each other. So those are the reasons that I think Ferrari has a really big shot at the 2022 title, but also some of the problems that can come up from their amazing driver lineup and from such an aggressive car design. But let me know in the comments down below if you think that Ferrari are going to be even near the 2022 World Champions, and if you think that if they are the champions, which driver is going to win it. So with that said, that's been it for this video, and I really hope you guys enjoyed my analysis of Ferrari's 2022 season. And if you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe, it helps out the channel a lot. And if you did, you can also check out my latest video right here. So with that said, that's all for today, and I hope to see you in my next video. Goodbye!